Hi, my name is Rabbi Sarah Perman, and I am on the board of the National Catholic Center for Holocaust Education at Seton Hill University. While most young people are introduced to the Holocaust through the Diary of Anne Frank, I was introduced to the Holocaust by the book All But My Life by Gerda Klein. And the reason is because she ended up living in the Buffalo, New York area, and I grew up in Niagara Falls, New York. And the book that I'm going to read from, the book that I have, was given to my grandmother and is autographed by her, by Gerda Klein. Gerda was 15 years old, grew up in Poland when the Nazis came into her hometown of Bielsko, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, and was sent to a labor camp. She lost all of her family. The section of the book that I want to share with you actually begins on page 213 in my copy, and it is about the liberation of Gerda. We went back to the barracks where most of the rest of the girls had gathered. We found chaos, crying and shouts of joy. The hour had struck at last. Somehow I couldn't grasp it. There were no golden trumpets to proclaim our freedom. There were no liberators in sight. Lisa was lying on the littered floor. She knew we were free, but did not seem elated. "Where's Seuss?" I asked her. "She went out to get water and hasn't returned. She has been gone a long time." I went out to look for Seuss. She was not at the pump. I found her off away lying in the mud. Her eyes were glassy, unseeing, but for a moment I did not realize she was dead. "Seuss, we're free," I called to her. "We're free, the war is over." When I touched her, I knew the truth. I did not tell Lisa. It was too sad for Liberation Day. As I look back now, trying to recall my feelings during those first hours, I actually think that there were none. My mind was so dull, my nerves so worn from waiting, that only an emotionless vacuum remained. Like many of the other girls, I just sat and waited for whatever would happen next. In the afternoon, a strange vehicle drove up. In it were two soldiers in strange uniforms, one of them who spoke German. The German mayor of the town was with them. He was trying to tell the two soldiers that he really wasn't not anti-Semitic. The soldiers were Americans. I knew as soon as I heard them speak to one another. Arthur had spoken their language a little. Tears welled from my eyes as they approached us. The German-speaking soldier patted me with his clean hand. "Don't cry, my child," he said with compassion. "It is all over now." "We must return to headquarters," said the other one in German. "Can you girls wait until morning? We shall return." I remember nothing else that happened that day. The next thing I remember was waking up wrapped snugly and warm in a coat which the SS had left behind. Waking up with what I thought was a smile, which must have seemed more like a grimace in my pitifully thin face. The barracks was bathed in sunshine, and I woke up with the knowledge that I was free. I was eager to go outside, to move about freely. Perhaps I would meet the Americans again. I swayed as I started to walk. My skin was hot and dry as I reached the door. The first thing I saw was that strange vehicle bouncing toward us through the brilliant May sunshine. I was overcome with joy. I called to the other girls that some Americans were coming. The soldier on the left made a motion to the driver, who stopped the vehicle a few feet from where I was standing. The soldier jumped out and walked towards the barracks. He wasn't the one who had come the day before. Shaking my head, I stared at this man who was to me the embodiment of all heroism and liberty. He greeted me. I must tell him from the start. I resolved so that he was no illusion about us. Perhaps I had acquired a feeling of shame. After all, for 6 long years, the Nazis had tried to demean us. "May I see the other ladies?" he asked. "Ladies," my brain repeated. He probably doesn't know. I thought, I must tell him. "We are Jews," I said in a small voice. "So am I," he answered. Was there a catch in his voice, or did I imagine it? I could have embraced him, but I was aware how dirty and repulsive I must be. Won't you come with me? He asked. He held the door open. I didn't understand at first. I looked at him, questioning. I just on the straw floor. She gently, unbelievingly touched the sleeve of his jacket. In the exchange that followed, I made out the word happy. I understood that word. Then she sighed, released his hand, and looking at him, shook her head and whispered, too late. We moved on to Liesel. Liesel just smiled and said nothing. She didn't seem to care much. I looked back at Lily. Her eyes were fixed on the American. A solitary tear ran down her cheek. An ant was crawling over her chin. Shortly afterward, Lily died. I heard the American give commands in English. He seemed furious that things weren't moving fast enough. He explained to me in German that a hospital was being set up for us. Then he asked me, is there anything I can do for you in particular? Yes, there is, I said. If you would be kind enough and could find the time. You see, I have an uncle in Turkey. Could you write to him, let him know that I am alive and that I hope he has news from my parents and my brother? He took out a notebook and removed the sunglasses he had been wearing. I saw tears in his eyes. He wore battle gear with a net over his helmet. And as he wrote, I looked at him and couldn't absorb enough of the wonder that he had fought for my freedom. He snapped his book shut. I would like to ask you a question, he said softly. But please don't answer if you don't want to. We are aware of what has happened. Tell me, were you girls sterilized? I did not answer at once. I was too full of emotion. Why should he, of all people who looked at me like a young god, inquire about the deepest treasure that I, who must have looked like an animal to him, carried still within me? We were spared, I managed to say. A few moments later, joined by his companion and the mayor, he drove off. Before I had even asked his name, he vanished. Now, I have to tell you a little bit of the end of the story, although I suggest very much that you read it. The American soldier comes back. His name was Kurt Klein, and he ends up marrying Gerda Klein. They have children and grandchildren. And it was a story with a happy ending, even though she had a horrible experience while she was under the Nazi rule. Thank you.